In TypeScript, we have other modifiers for controlling access to properties and methods. And again, we use these properties to write more robust code. So let's look at a real example. In our current implementation, we have the deposit method for updating the balance. Now, let's say in the future, we also want to record transactions in this account. So every time we deposit or withdraw money, we want to record a transaction so we know who paid how much when, okay? So we're going to have a new property in this class called transactions, which is going to be an array of transaction objects. Then every time we want to update the balance, just before doing so, we're going to record a transaction object, okay? Now, there is a problem with this implementation. The problem is that once we have an account object, we can directly update its balance. Why is this a problem? Because with this line of code, we don't have a record of a transaction. We don't know who paid how much money when. This is where we can use access control keywords or access modifiers to solve this problem. In TypeScript, we have 3 access modifiers: public, private, and protected. We'll talk about protected later in this section. So for now, let's just focus on public and private. Now, when we declare properties, all these properties are public by default. So we don't have to use the public keyword right here. But if we use the private keyword, look, now we get a compilation error saying property balance is private and only accessible within class account. So we cannot access this property from outside of the account class, but we can access it from within this class inside the deposit method. This is the benefit of using a private property. Now, a common misconception by a lot of beginners is that we use private properties for storing sensitive data like user's password, credit card number, and so on. Don't ever do this. We only use private properties for writing robust code because this private modifier enforces some rule in our code, okay? Now, by convention, we prefix these private properties with an underscore. So let's press F2 here and rename this property to underline balance. That's better. So now we cannot access the balance property, but what if you want to show the balance to the user? If we type console.log account.balance, this doesn't work. So how can we solve this problem? Well, here's one simple solution. In this class, we can define a method called getBalance, which returns a number. And here we return this.underline balance. Then we call this method right here. Now, there is a better way, which we'll talk about soon. Now, these access modifiers can also be applied to methods. For example, in this class, let's define a method called calculateTags. Let's say we're going to use this method only internally within this class. Perhaps we're going to call it from the deposit method. So we don't want to make this accessible from the outside. So now we can apply the private keyword here. And with this, if we type account dot, we cannot see the calculateTags method, okay? So this is all about access modifiers. Next, we're going to talk about parameter properties.